Hi, everyone. I am a little late. I apologize for that. I've never done such a long planned video like that before. It used to be just on the lamb, just deciding to do it or not. But I've been meaning to do this for a while now, ever since the 7th of October. And I kept putting it off and putting it off. But then I just decided that it's time. And I'll explain to you in a minute why today, of all times. But it's mostly because something that I read on news headlines that I read yesterday on Friday. So first of all, to all of you in the U.S. or other places, I don't know, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is. I really do understand the core of it all. We must dive first 3,500 years ago, and then map out our history step by step. And I will do that, but not tonight. I will do that on a private YouTube channel, which I'm planning to open up either by the end of this week or next week, where I will post chapter after chapter about what's been going on and why we keep having to talk about this. So for now, I'm speaking about what's been going on since October 6th, actually, USA time. In general, I live in a kibbutz in southern Israel. For those of you who don't know, kibbutz is a community in Israel that traditionally was based on agriculture and farming, where everybody lived together and worked together, and in groups. Kibbutz means, the literal meaning of kibbutz is to gather, gathering, grouping, stuff like that. So that's the main idea. And the first kibbutz in Israel was established in 1910. It was called Kibbutz Dgania, and as of the census, the 2018 census, there are in Israel approximately 265 kibbutzim, populating about 171,000 people. So a lot has changed since 1910, and the kibbutzim today, many of them operate a bit differently than they did then. Some of them kept the traditional way of handling things, and it's still a way of life. It's very, very, it's not for everybody, but it's I think the perfect place to raise children. I don't have children of my own, but it's pretty safe. A kibbutz is a safe place. It's closed up. Everybody knows everybody, literally, even more than in Cheers, by the way. But the kids walk around and run around. They don't need supervision. They don't need anything like that. And it's a nice environment. It's a nice feeling, and it's very good for so many of us. The literal meaning, I told you that already. Okay, the first kibbutz. See, that's why I write things. So what I would like to begin with is the catastrophic attack on Israeli kibbutzim and communities on October 7th, 2023. That was 57 days ago. The decision to create this video came to me yesterday when I was just scouring through foreign news outlets, and I saw headlines in every single one of them that I read. I saw headlines that reported that the IDF resumed its attacks on the Hamas. That is the time when I felt that there needs to be some sifting of truths from fiction or fake news, as some may call it. The kibbutz in which I live is in the northwest of the Negev Desert. It's approximately 1.5 miles from Gaza, maybe a little less. For me personally, it all began, the whole catastrophe began on Friday, October 6th, because I was visiting the U.S. For the Jewish high holidays. At around 5:30 p.m. or 5 p.m. my time, Pacific Standard Time, I noticed that my WhatsApp groups from the kibbutz, within the kibbutz, we had different WhatsApp groups. We had WhatsApp group for whoever wants to a lift to go somewhere, or even secondhand shopping or selling or buying or whatever. And we had other groups that were just for our kibbutz. And I noticed in the United States that Friday night that every single group on my phone is pretty much spewing messages like never before. So I opened my WhatsApp group to read what was going on, and I was literally freaked out. There were, I'm just going to give you some quote. I decided that I would do that. I'll quote messages that I read. I will omit the names. But just so you can understand what I saw that day, that evening. One quote. There was gunfire and explosions at the students' dorms. Does anyone know if it's the military? Question. Okay. Second one. Do not get out of your houses. Another one. Please, I'm begging you, pass this to whomever, a family in the safe room and terrorists are in the house. In that situation, the family was murdered. Another one, does anyone have info about, just as a name, he's 50 years old and was last seen leaving his house at 7:15 a.m. And that was the whole notice. The question and it was asked by this person's daughter. And sadly, she even reported that his body was found later on lying in the grass. Another message, help, please help. I have someone who's severely injured here. Another one, the I family is still disconnected after terrorists were there. That was something that was written by the son of this family about his parents who were actually burned inside their own home, burned to death. Another notice, please, what's going on with B and D? We later found out that they were murdered. The G family isn't responding. later found murdered. Floor 1 needs urgent help. That was the home opposite me, opposite of where I was living. And as you know by now, I wasn't there on that day. I was just reading all of this. Another one, urgent. Go to N. He's alone and injured since yesterday. Lost connection with him, is not responding. N died from his injuries. He was shot in the arm and severed a major artery. He died. His father was actually killed earlier that day. Another one. Dad's body was found. Another one. What's going on with the K family? The K family, father, mother, and 3 children were all murdered in their home. There are a lot of those quotes on my phone that are still there. That after I finished writing all of this, I realized that I just can't keep writing this. It's so devastating. It's unbelievable. Needless to say, it was basically me watching live, like a live, I don't know, a live show, you want to call it, of my loved ones being murdered and kidnapped and killed. One of my very best friends, I actually called him. He was like a little brother to me. And as soon as I saw this, I called him and I asked him how he was doing. He picked up the phone and I asked him how he was doing. And he said that he got shot in the hand and that he was okay. He was in the safe room. The bleeding was beginning to stop and he was fine. So I was happy for that. 2 hours later, he was killed. He was murdered. In effect, nobody on that day was killed. They were murdered. After writing this, I couldn't go on writing to you. I have tons of these or similar quotes and communications that are simply heartbreaking. Many, many, many of those people who were writing for help never made it. The other days, I spoke with a survivor the other day, and she explained something to me that I never thought about. And before I start telling you this, I'll tell you there's an Israeli music artist. And in one of his songs, he sings about one of the wars that were, we were involved with in Israel, and about how he was sent home, just had a weekend pass to go home. And while he was home, his whole unit was killed. And in the song, he says that he's going dancing with dead soldiers in his heart. And that line keeps popping up in my head because every single night since that Friday, I've been going to sleep every night with murdered and kidnapped people in my head. I go to sleep, I wake up at 2 a.m., same old dreams. I make myself a cup of coffee. I kind of relax a little bit and I go back to sleep. I have no nights, no days. It's not just me. I just don't want to seem to be representing a specific place because I don't have the authority to do that. So I'm representing myself and my feelings. So a friend of mine told me she was there and she survived something that I never thought about before. She said that while she and her children and her grandchildren were in the safe room in their homes, locked up in there and trying to be as quiet as they could so no one would know that they were there, they pretty much had tunnel vision of surviving, that they had to survive this. And so they didn't really know what was going on in the kibbutz. And I just heard another person who survived, who was interviewed for the Shoah Foundation, the Steven Spielberg's Shoah Foundation, and he has said the same thing. He said, we didn't know what was going on in the kibbutz. We just stayed there in the safe room. Luckily, he had electricity, but most of the kibbutz did not, so they couldn't even charge their phones. They couldn't let anybody know. There was no communication. Most people, even some people who were kidnapped and released last week, said that they had no idea what was happening in the kibbutz. One woman who was freed thought that her husband was dead, and he wasn't. He was injured, but he wasn't dead. So nobody really knew, very few people. It's only as the hours wore on that they realized that many people refused to open the door even to soldiers, because they didn't know if they were actual soldiers or Hamas people pretending to be soldiers. And so the soldiers, the military, created passwords to be used so that people would know that they can get out and be rescued. It took about 30 to 40 hours, something like that, to rescue everybody. It took the military about 6 hours to actually have feet on the ground over there. And most of the volunteer people from the kibbutz that were volunteer I don't know how to call them, protectors or gun owners, or no, they're a group of people who are there for the safety of the kibbutz. And if there's something that happens, they go out there, they have their weapons, and they're authorized by the military and the police against terrorists or anybody who tries to get into the kibbutz unlawfully, especially from Gaza. Sorry. So she told me that she didn't know. And then she said to me, you know, you were in the States and you pretty much knew everything that was going on because you were able to read everything that was written in those groups. And you bore witness to live murders, executions, people burning, people being kidnapped, to the cries for help, the cries for what's going on, find what's going on, bring the military, I don't want to get out of my house. And yes, I know that while I was reading this, especially afterward, I became crazed totally. Like all of my friends, all of the people in my home, you know, I've been there for 11 and a half years. They're dying on me, like right in front of my eyes. And I had no idea what to do. I felt so useless, you know, like my brain told me, look, if you had been there, you wouldn't have been able to help anyway. But you're saved. Somebody chose, whoever you believe in, whether it's God or somebody else, chose for you not to be there. So be grateful. And yes, I am grateful. But there's also something that's called guilt of I think, I don't remember what it's called in English, but people who survive something like that while others don't, they have that guilt that why them and not me, or why me and not them. And so yes, I do have that. Eyewitness people that went to see my home told me that if I had been there, I wouldn't have survived. I would probably have been murdered or kidnapped based on how my home that was bullet riddled, or still is, looks like, that they pretty much broke in, and they probably would have killed me, murdered me, or kidnapped me. So yes, for that I'm very, very grateful. But you know, the heart feels what the heart feels, and reading all these words, you know, I felt helpless, and the helplessness was maddening. I mean, the sorrow and the pain, and it's nothing is describable. I can't describe any of it the way I feel. And I think this is the first time that I've tried to do a video and not be emotional and not cry while doing it. So the 2 days after, I actually contacted my the Israeli Airlines and asked to immediately fly back, and I did. I left everything and I came back. And I didn't dare yet to go down to my kibbutz and look at what's left, which isn't much, because I don't think I would have been able to do that professionally. I mean, mentally and emotionally, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So I only had people. I mean, somebody called me the other day. I'm in a hotel in Tel Aviv right now. Before this whole thing started, there were about 1,000 people of us. There are less, obviously, right now, but there had to be an immediate evacuation of everybody. So most of the people, especially those with families, are placed in another kibbutz north of Tel Aviv. The older people whose children are out of the house and it's just them were placed in a hotel in Tel Aviv. And me, because I came a little later, along with younger people and a few older people, are in a different hotel in Tel Aviv. And there are some people that chose to be with their families and friends at their homes. Somebody called me from the lobby the other day, and he said to me, "Could you please come down? I have something for you." So I went down, and he was in my apartment because they sent people out there to rescue cars that are still drivable, or to seal off homes and windows and places that could get wet in the rain until everything is sorted out. So he went into my apartment and he saw on the wall a photograph of me with my family from when I graduated with my first BA, and he brought it to me to the hotel. And I have to tell you, for half a day I sat with that picture and I just cried, because it's a very, very lonely feeling, I have to admit. And even though that picture is from 27 years ago, I looked a lot better, everybody looked a lot better, I was so grateful to him for even thinking about it. By the way, the frame of the photograph has looks like either it was scraped by a bullet or got a shrapnel hit it. And I'm going to keep it that way. It's going to stay that way. I know I have more. As me personally, I am treated by professionals, and but I was told by therapists and social workers that the most, in general, not necessarily just my case, but in general, people who are witnessing a horrific something that happens have a tendency to have worse and more severe post-trauma symptoms than the people who are hurt or injured or this thing happening to them. And the reason is because they're too preoccupied with protecting themselves or with fighting or being afraid, while the witness is actually standing on the sidelines and watching it all happen in front of their eyes. And so the social worker and the therapist, they told me, they said, it's no wonder that you're feeling so badly. It's because you bore witness to not just one, but many, many, many bad stuff that was happening. And so I know that everybody involved, pretty much all of us from that area that was attacked that day, even people from the rest of the country, our lives will never be the same again. To a degree, of course, each with their own issues, but you know, every time after a rocket attack, we used to say, okay, we're going back to normal. And normal for us was, it's quiet and nice and beautiful until Hamas decides to launch rockets again. And that kind of normal is never going to happen again, ever. Our normal from now on will be the abnormal. And I'm not saying it to be dark. I'm saying it because it's true. After everything that happened, I'm not here to complain about my PTSD. I'm here to start a discussion about Israel and the Jewish people and the way that both Israel and the Jewish people are regarded by others, by other countries and news networks, and in ways that I feel are arrogant, uneducated, just brainwashing without any, or mostly, no truth to it. So when I browsed through the headlines yesterday, and when I saw that those headlines that the IDF resumed its attacks in Gaza, I think it was those were headlines that totally and utterly omitted the fact that Hamas started a volley of rockets and missiles into southern and central Israel earlier in the morning, just completely discarding the ceasefire agreements and just launching and launching and launching. And those launches lasted through the day. I mean, now I'm talking to you from the quote-unquote catacombs of the hotel because I wanted to have some quiet and some privacy. But I heard sirens today in central Israel, not in Tel Aviv, in central Israel, but you never know. And that's the way Hamas operates. In my opinion, Israel doesn't have the best way to explain itself, or I don't think we should explain ourselves. I think as a sovereign country, we have a right to defend our country against all enemies. And this is what I'm asking from you. Whether you're in Timbuktu right now, or in England, in London, or in San Francisco, or wherever you are, just think one thing. a neighboring country, a neighboring state, and a terror organization launches rockets at you as a civilian, what would you expect, want, demand your government to do about it? Would you agree for them to keep doing that until they get tired of it? Or would you want to just completely obliterate the option of that ever happening again? And it seems like a lot of the political map of Israel has changed. In fact, I can tell you that at the moment, ever since that cursed day, the citizens of Israel are running the country. It's not the government, it's the citizens. And they're running it better than any government ever in the history of this country, and I think in the history of the world. It's where the citizens are taking care of each other. It's unbelievable. We don't talk about liberalism versus conservatism. We don't talk about men, women, religious, secular. We don't talk about these things anymore. We don't talk about gays. We don't talk about, she's a woman, she can do that. He's gay, he should be part of. There aren't any differences these days in most of Israel. In 99% of the country, 99% of the community are not distinguishing between anybody anymore. We're all the same. And those of us who were not deported, but were pretty much refugees, if you want to call it, in other places, like in this hotel, we're being treated with silk gloves right now. There's so much love. There's so much giving. It's unbelievable. And it comes from Shachaf and Stan. Thank you. I love you both. You're both my brothers. They just don't know what to do anymore. I found a group from Central Israel, a group of men who took on their trucks and their gears that they had and just went south during this, and they're still there, even in the midst of this war that's continuing. And they're going from one community to another community. They're asking people, what do you want us to pick up from your apartment? You should see the list I made. But I heard that my turning table got a bullet in it. But it's just amazing the stuff that people do. They just want you to come and take whatever they can give you. That's all they want. They want to give and to hug. And especially when it comes to children or to special dinners, clothes, everything anybody might need, they get from the refugees. But they don't get it from the country, from the government. The government does pay the hotels, but a lot of this stuff also comes from the Jewish Agency. And then we get gift cards from donors that we can go and use them to purchase things. Problem is, they're limited to what stores you can go to. But again, it's not something I cry about. There's no reason to cry about. There's no reason to complain anymore. I do complain about the absurdity and the arrogance and the ignorance and the uneducated opinions of people who run around hating, be it this, in my case, Jews, Israelis, Israel, and all of that, and support Hamas. Now, I'm going to tell you something right now that if you watched that horrific video that was published, I didn't watch it because I didn't need to. I know for a fact that these Hamas people, that so many universities allow their students to support and call for supporting Hamas, These Hamas people, you chopped babies' heads and played soccer with them. I mean, do you understand that? Do you realize that this happened? It's not a Hollywood movie. It's not a Hollywood, I don't know, horror show. It's real. It happened. It happened. Rape. Beatings. You know, there was one elderly woman who died while in the hands of Hamas. And you know what they said? Actually, it wasn't Hamas. It was the Islamic Jihad, but they're all terrorists. The Islamic Jihad said that she died because she was sick and they wanted to help her, but because Israel was attacking, they had no way of getting to her. Really? I mean, if you buy that story, anybody who buys that story, I will give everything I have for them to get a beach house in Arizona. Okay? People need to educate themselves. People need to learn. Don't take my word for it. Learn. Do your research. When I see LGBTQ people saying that they support Hamas, guess what happens to you when a Hamas person sees you? You're dead. They hate LGBTQ people more than they hate Jewish people or Zionist people. The Quran. Let's go to the Quran, their holy book. The Quran specifically says that Israel, this area called Israel, was given by God to the Jews. But the religious leaders, or the Hamas leaders, or Iran leaders, turn it all around and say, no, Muhammad was in Jerusalem, and he wasn't. Muhammad was never in Jerusalem. One night he had a dream that he was on this rock with his horse, and for people to find the rock. He was in Mecca at the time, in Saudi Arabia. And so his disciples decided that that rock was in Jerusalem. And guess what? They consider it one of their holiest places. But when they pray there, when they pray, nobody faces Jerusalem. Everybody faces Mecca. It's a story. It's like Hansel and Gretel and whatever. I'm not going to continue with that because in my YouTube channel, I'll give you a lot more than that. But I will tell you that at the moment, there are still approximately 170 people that are kidnapped and are held hostages in Gaza. They are also, most of them are civilians, women, men, children, babies, and the elderly. There's even, I think, one Holocaust survivor that they kidnapped. And why? Before I end this discussion, I'd like to ask, as I've done a little earlier, a couple of minutes ago, I'd like to ask all of you who are watching this, wherever you are, do not, absolutely do not drink the Kool-Aid that's being served to you by influencers who try to brainwash people and drag them into unnecessary hate. Anti-Semitism, any hate against a certain race or a certain religion is unnecessary hate. Completely unnecessary hate. You don't have to believe me at all. As I said, all you have to do is verify before you form an opinion. Be educated. Be informed. And don't stand for racism, for anti-Semitism, for hate, and for lies. The YouTube channel that I will begin probably will start either by the end of this coming week or next week. And I will pretty much will go over the past 3,500 years of history. I just want to say something. I saw on Facebook somebody wrote that very soon, toward the middle of December, billions of people will be celebrating the birth of a Jewish man who was born in Bethlehem in Israel. And many of these people only think that Jews came to Israel in 1948. Think about that one. I thank you. I really do thank you for whoever showed up. And if you have any questions, I will answer them. Just write your questions. I will answer them. I will not answer any hateful messages or anything that's hateful. And I will do so as soon as I can. May God bless us all, regardless of who and where we are and how we pray. I hope He blesses us with good health, healthier sense of manners and truths, and to be good to one another, because there's only one human race and we're all God's children.